grab your popcorn, grab a beverage of choice, grab a blanket, because it is time for the Witches Movie Coven. Yep, witches, talking about witches in movies. Today we've got a great movie for you. Carrie, the original 1976. Carrie. Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, but I hope you did. Let me introduce myself and my co-panelist. My name is Patti Negri. You might know me from my regular passes, which I can't even think of the name of. I'm so upset over Carrie. We love Carrie. No, I don't know. Witches movie. I cannot remember. The Witching Hour. Thank you. The Witching Hour, my regular podcast. I'm going to pass this over to my co-host, Richard-Lael. Introduce yourself and then go down the line because I'm shutting up now.
Hi, I'm Richard-Lael. As you know, Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I'd be a dick. Anyway, my name is the Gentleman Psychic, and I am just glad to be here. I'm glad that Courtney survived, but we'll go to Heather Greene first. Heather Greene, hello.
Hello. That was abrupt. Okay, everyone's moving fast today. I am Heather Greene. I wrote a book called Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, all about the subjects we talk about here, witches in film and witchcraft in film and Hollywood film. And I am a journalist and a book editor and a witch and lots of other things, I suppose. So in the spirit of tonight, I will pass it on to who's next? Courtney.
That's me.
Or Jason.
Oh, Jason.
Wait. Courtney.
All right. Well, I'm Courtney Buckley. I am Ghost Bait on Scared and Alone, as some of you may have seen this weekend. I'd like to just formally thank Patti and Richard-Lael, who were both with me on what was probably the scariest night of my life, which everyone can watch for their entertainment at scaredalone.com. But yeah, I'm excited. I watched the right movie this time, guys, so I'm ready. And I'm going to throw it to Gigi. As you can see, I'm not where I normally am. I'm in Michigan right now, and this is one of my very best friends.
I am. I am Gigi. I am host of Paranormal XL podcast. And owner-operator of Ascended from Magic Boutique. And she is correct that we're just lucky to be alive. Yeah.
So let's throw it to Jason.
I am Jason. I'm Jason. I've written 9 witchcraft books for Llewellyn. None of them about movies, but I'm especially interested in witchcraft history. So sometimes I chime in about those things on this show. I also have beautiful blonde hair, which is probably my best feature. It's so good to be back with the movie Coven tonight.
All right. Thank you so much. Now that we have all gathered ourselves, you could see how much this movie affected some of us. We can't even talk tonight. But I guess as we normal, let's go to the expert on this to kind of explain to Heather, what is Carrie, the original movie? Do you want to give us a little bit of a background?
Sure. Let's put this in perspective. So we're back in the 1970s, just like last week, except last week's movie, which was the beginning of the period of time that I like to call the first witch movie wave, the first time that witch movies became noticeably a popular trend. So that was the 70s, starting with Rosemary's Baby. This is sort of at the end of the trend, and Carrie really sets off a totally different type of witchcraft movie. Those early ones were all about covens and satanic witchcraft and ritual and adults. When Carrie hits the scene, we move into teenage witchcraft movies, and Carrie was so popular that it set off a number of other movies that were similar, about teenage girls having some kind of innate power. To sound kind of familiar like the 1990s? Because it is. This is a trope that is continued periodically through in witchcraft waves. So other movies that you might want to look at after this is things like Wes Craven. Everyone knows Wes Craven, the director. Summer of Fear. The Initiation of Sarah, which there was a second one done, and you got to look at the 70s one. There is also another film called The Spell. So there were a bunch of made-for-TV movies that were sort of based on the Carrie movie because of its success. Now, again, I didn't mention that Carrie is the cinematic version of a Stephen King film. So that's where we get that. And the question I guess we can all talk about here is, and I also, is Carrie really a witchcraft movie? The reason I include it is because I say yes, marginally, it is marginally. There is a series of witchcraft movies throughout Hollywood's history that deal with this sort of sense of an innate sort of kinetic power that comes from somewhere, that are marginally witchcraft movies. But the question remains, is it really a witchcraft movie? It's considered one. In most books, when you talk about witchcraft movies, people think about it. Carrie, oh, the witchcraft movie. Is it really a witchcraft movie? So I'll leave you at that. This is the end of the first wave, and it's a fantastic movie, Brian De Palma. And it really started his career in full.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go first. I usually go last on this, but I guess I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and I actually totally forgot how disturbing this movie was, how disturbed I was by this movie. I personally think Sissy Spacek was amazing. I actually liked all the characters and how they did it and what they did, but I felt for that girl. So I don't remember going, oh, it's a witchcraft movie, it's about witches. It was just this girl with this superpower who I really felt for. So I watched it like right after last week, because I'm usually watching them the day of or the night before, all night staying up, and I just want to get this out, and I've been upset for a whole week about it. Why is that? It's just like that, all that teen angst comes out to a supernatural whatever on this one. So that's all I have to say. I just like, wow. And the shocking of it. I mean, opening up, you mentioned it. I remember Rob, our producer, said last week, he goes, well, a movie won't open like this movie anymore. And no, it won't open like that movie anymore. How standards have changed. I mean, basically, spoiler alert, it's naked teenage girls in a shower. I mean, it's not being sexual or anything, but it's like, it's nothing you'd see on TV now or movies. So anybody have any comment on that one or that next?
I agree. It wasn't sexual, but it was very shocking to see what is ostensibly a 17 or 18-year-old group of girls in this. I mean, I'm not a Puritan, but it made me feel I mean, yes, it's a shower scene. Yes, they're all in the locker. I get it. Yes, I get it. But it was a little shocking to see that in the beginning. That's what I have on that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, I think I said because we just watched it right before this, and I think I said to Sarah, I'm like, they're always making me watch these movies with naked people in it, and it makes me sound like a prude, and I'm not a prude, but like there's so much nudity right now in my face, and I wasn't expecting it.
Boom.
Yeah, just all of it everywhere, right in your face. I pulled some quotes because you guys liked that the last time. And there was more in this one that I was like, whoop, gotta write that down. Whoop, we need a t-shirt of this. My favorite one that I've been saying all night was, the first sin was intercourse. Like all night.
Love the whole movie. It's just great.
I just kept yelling it. And then when the mom was like, she's like, eat this or whatever, she's like, I can't, it'll give me pimples. And Carrie's mom says, pimples are the Lord's way of chastising you. And I was like, whoa, God must hate me. Like, and then the last one, and I will say this forevermore, because I will call it nothing else, but when she puts her dress on and her mom says, I can see your dirty pillows.
We really enjoyed that one. That was I've seen the movie pretty much like my whole not my childhood, but my teenage years up. So it was her first time seeing it. So like I'm watching it and her reactions were just phenomenal. Like I should have been recording the whole thing. Nothing to do with the movie, just her face and her reactions. It was great.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, I'm not a victim blamer by any means, and I don't like victim blaming, but those kids had it coming, and I am totally on Carrie's side, and I wish that, you know, she would have won in the end, but that's where I'm at.
My wife had been using the term dirty pillows for years, and I had never seen this movie until Monday, and now I know where she gets it from. Like, it's just influenced my wife super greatly, and I had no clue, you know, so very enlightening for me in so many ways.
So,
Not a fan of that opening.
Yeah. So, Courtney, I guess you don't want the scared and alone to be scared and naked. And
I mean, I'm all for it. I like it.
I have to tell you,
forever.
listen, I have to tell you a story. My boss at my job can't ever get the name of Scared and Alone right because it reminds him of Naked and Afraid, or Naked and whatever the one is in the
Naked
woods.
and Afraid.
Yeah.
Okay, Naked and Afraid. So he calls it Naked. He's like, "What are you doing this weekend, Naked and Afraid?" And I'm like, "Can you stop? Because people would pay to not watch that." And then it's like a constant conversation. So no, I would not like that. No,
So instead of shaking in your boots, you'd be shaking in your bare feet because you wouldn't have on boots, and then you'd be stepping on ham sandwiches, and there you go.
there'd be a lot of things shaking, Patty, and a lot of things that I'd be stepping on, and we're not gonna. There'd be some dirty pillows on the floor that I'd be stepping on.
All right.
I watched both the original 76 and the 2006 remake. I think it was 2000 something, 2000 anyway, 2000 remake. And the opening is the same but different. It's a shower scene. You still get that it's a shower scene. It still is. You still get that teen anxiety, but they get out of the pool, so they're all still in their swimwear. So I think it makes sense. I personally felt more comfortable with the more modern version than I did the older version in that scene.
I'm gonna jump in here on that scene because I think the discomfort everyone has with it is partly due to the times that we are in right now versus the times then, because during the 70s there was a lot, especially in witchcraft films and especially in occult films, there was a lot of nudity, and there was just generally a lot of nudity, especially for women during the 70s and 80s in film overall. So you have that factor, but I think also is Brian De Palma was intending to make you uncomfortable, because this is a movie about the discomfort and oppression and suppression of women and young girls as they grow and try to figure out who they are. So that opening scene, it's similar to Jaws. It's similar to a lot of the movies that were being made by these really auteur directors, you know, that had this artistic flair that never was seen before. They had this artistic flair to do these shocking scenes in the 70s. And you see it in Godfather, you see it in a lot of these movies. And I think that's what he was intending, to lure you into this scene where you're uncomfortable, it's sensual, it's sexual, but you're uncomfortable because you're not supposed to be there. So you're the voyeur going through this going, I'm really not supposed to be seeing this, but yet I'm seeing it. But what's going on? But I'm really not supposed to be looking. And then you get into the shower scene part of it, which becomes even more sensual and even more private. You're watching this private moment for this teenage girl, which is symbolic of the way women and young girls are treated in society. And then all of a sudden the blood hits, and it's like, that's where horror exists. The horror exists between something that's so shocking and not supposed to be there with something that's so attractive and draws you in. So in between that two, you wind up with horror. And that's what makes this scene so effective. It's because our reaction is exactly what he wanted. Exactly the way he wanted to set this film up. So I think we're having the correct reactions. According to the director, he'd be very pleased. It is disturbing. The whole movie is disturbing from the beginning to the end. There's no question about it. And I want to say is that the end, I did jump, even though every time I watch the movie, I jump at the end. Every single time, I forget how it ends.
Me too.
And I don't know that she didn't win. I mean, she didn't win because she, I don't want to do spoilers. Did she win? No, but she didn't quite lose either, I don't think.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there was like a hot second there where I was like, when she told off her mom, she did the thing that she wanted to do anyway. Even though I had never seen it, I knew how it ended. But like, she stood up to her mom. She's gonna do the thing that she wants to do. Where I was like, heck yeah, I get it. Go get it, Carrie. Like, and I think that part, my heart bled for her anyway because she was how horribly she was being mistreated. But then in that moment where she, that was like, I've talked about it before, where I love those coming into your own power moments in these movies. And that to me felt like hers, even though it was subtle, that's a big oppression to overcome, and to just say, no, I'm going to do the thing anyway. So I was really rooting for her at that point. And I think if that's the win that she gets, then great. But I feel like, I don't know. I would have liked the end to be longer. I would have liked I think it went by too fast. Everybody was just, kaput, and that was it. And I don't know. I felt like it was the rest of the movie. Like, you felt all the feelings, you got into the trauma that she was experiencing. And to me, the end wasn't satisfying enough because I wanted to watch them suffer a little bit more.
Like abruptly ended.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's
But
done.
they did in the remake. In the remake, they did sort of extend that ending, and there's a lot more. You feel a little bit more for Carrie even in that moment, and she even rescues the girl who sent her to prom. So you kind of feel a little bit in the remake. I don't always like remakes. The remake was good too. Separate movie, but it was also good.
Well,
I found that hard.
Anyway, I hear some people didn't watch it. That's okay.
I haven't watched the second one yet, but I want to go back to the mother, because I remember I was alive in those 70s days, and the mother, the zealot, and they're scary. Sadly, people like that. But that also was when that first big Jesus people, and there were people, weird zealot, that born again or you're going to hell. Because I was taken to one of those places, not by parents or anything like that. So I think it was also not just reflecting on the witchcraft, but this weird new zealot evangelical thing that was happening right in those middle late 70s. Because I saw it and it was scary.
And I can attest to that. Now, I'm a little bit later than that part, but my my sister's mother-in-law, deceased, every time that my sister would come over or that we would come over, she would sit down in sackcloth and ashes and repent to the Lord for allowing dirty people into her house, because we were evil, because we were not. My parents had a television, even though we didn't have a television until I was 6 or 7. But we were evil, and so she would sit down in ashes by the stove and in sackcloth, and she would mourn because her son had married my sister. It was this weird. They were very religious. They thought that everything was a punishment from God, and there was no joy. Everything. They had the long sleeves and the long hair and the high collars, and it's fine if it's a personal choice, but it was so oppressive that it was just a joyless thing. So I fully understand on a firsthand basis that religious zealotry of the mother.
Yeah. This was the time that Focus on the Family and the fundamentalist movement hit hard on mainstream. This was the precursor to the Satanic Panic. So all of this was slowly building in reaction to the 60s and early 70s. All of this was slowly building, and eventually coming by 79. I think Focus on the Family started in 79. you have those movements really hitting mainstream, really taking on strong roles in our increasingly our society as conservatism moves in. So that's a historical fact backs everything you guys just said. And so yeah, they're picking up on that as well. And as well as the feminist movement, second wave feminism is coming through in De Palma's thing, which is this discussion. But bringing it back to witchcraft, you think about a lot of the folk tales and fairy tales. It's always about this girl, this young teen girl who discovers her power or some kind of power or something, some kind of change around the age of 15, 16, 17. That is a trope that we see over and over, narrative trope over and over, especially in witchcraft films or fairy tales or other magical type of tales. And so that magic, that power that Carrie has, which is a gift, whether it's a gift from God or a gift or whatever, or whether it's magic or Sabrina, for example, another one that discovers her power at that age. It's a allegory for women's power. It's an allegory for girls discovering their adulthood, their sexuality, their life as a woman, all these various things. So it's it becomes an allegory, and that's what this is about. And that's what that's why it still fits into the witchcraft genre in a way, even though the word witch was only used once, I believe.
Wow.
So it's an interesting thing. And what makes it, just not to keep talking, but what makes it really interesting tying it to witchcraft too, is that how Carrie dies, or how that whole end scene happens. There's fire. And a lot of these witchcraft teen films at this time, the end involves a fight with a mother, and fire. That's very interesting trend that happened. And that also ties it back to the fairy tales and to fairy tales that involve teenage girls and to witchcraft. So just other little tidbits.
Well, and I think also for me, on a personal level, on a personal level, also why it ties to witchcraft is because it's this innate thing that comes within her, and she wasn't trained; she just knew it, and it skipped her mother. Her father had it too, but it skipped her mother. The grandmother had it, and maybe it didn't skip the mother, and maybe that's why she went to the opposite extreme, because in my instance, my mother was Cherokee, my father, they were French and English, but witchcraft was in my family for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we were completely very religious, and the Bible says to suffer not a witch to live, and that you wouldn't have powers. And my mother, when she was she had telekinesis. She could make pencils move, and she could transmit her thoughts into other people's heads. And it was what she did. And she did it as a defense mechanism. And so she worked for Zenith a long time ago, making television tubes or whatever. And people would come to her and they would ask her what she knew. And she would say, oh, well, this is what's going on in your world, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, and that was fine. Everything was fine until they started calling her the witch. Now, my mother was completely religious, completely Christian, completely afraid of witchcraft. And so she herself, out of fear of being called a witch, she went, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do that. And she shut down her abilities because she was so afraid of going to hell, as what she was told. So I think in the film, the mother very well could have had some sort of kinetic power that she had shut off out of fear. And then for me, I didn't realize that I had it. I knew things. I thought everybody knew things. I remember my parents had taken in foster kids, and well, I wasn't going to mention it, but I'll tell you. So this kid always tormented me, always tormented me. And I told him that he was going to regret it because I was going to live in Hollywood and be on television, and that he was going to die in a car accident, but it was going to happen when he was 25. And then years later, I found out that he, in fact, at 25, was coming home in the rain, killed in a car accident. And I felt like I had caused it, but my mother said, no, honey, you didn't cause it. You just saw it, and there's a difference. So I think relating it to witchcraft in that way is, I think on a personal level, that's why it's witchcraft to me.
And I want to say, I want to go back to the power of that age of people. I've worked with kids. I work with a lot of teens, preteens, in all of the ways that I work, and in my witchcraft and in my like seances and what I do. When you're just post puberty and you haven't gotten too far into 20 yet, you are powerful. That's why all the poltergeist stuff seems to happen with teens. That's why if I'm doing a seance with a bunch of like teens, stuff is flying across the room much more than say of all of us right here. We're sitting around a table. There is, I think it's a life force. It's that fresh, past puberty, not too far into adulthood. Maybe not to the extent of Carrie, but we have it.
Well, is it perhaps a telekinesis film and not a witchcraft film? I mean, I'm always hesitant to say people are witches unless they choose to self-identify as a witch, or it's some sort of ongoing thread. Maybe they have a past family thing as witches. But I mean, her family's about as far from witchcraft, at least identifying that way, as you possibly could be, right? I mean, is there a telekinesis movie genre, Heather?
There, you know what, there could be. There's a number, because there are a lot of movies that talk about gifts that are not specifically labeled witchcraft. They don't look like witchcraft as we know it as modern practitioners. Another movie would be called The Gift. That was, I think, The Gift is 2000. Then there is Resurrection, which is 1980. Then there is a Spitfire from the 30s. So there's a number of movies. Make Me Not a Witch is a TV show that was in the 50s. So there's a number of them, and there's more. Those are the ones I include. And I think it really I think there is no witchcraft genre formally. There's nobody that defines it in any formal way. The way I defined it in my book, I talk about it in my introduction, and what makes a witchcraft film. I had to make my own delineations. And I say, if at any point during a movie, a character is labeled as a witch, a magical character is labeled as a witch, then I looked at the movie. And in these films, they are. And I think that is, as a film that is I think these films are as important as witchcraft films, similar to the Salem films, where they're not witches, but they're called witches because of the culture and the society. So there's a lot of different types of witchcraft films. So we'll call these telekinesis witchcraft films. They're a little different than, so it's subcategories of witchcraft films, Jason. So, but I think I think telekinesis is very strong. There was a book series when I was a kid, and the girl had silver eyes, and she could move things with her silver eyes. And I remember reading that series as like in elementary school and just being like, thinking this was the coolest thing. And I wish I had silver eyes, and I would sit there and stare at things during class, hoping they would move just so I could be like the girl with the silver eyes. So, I think there's a thing there's a fascination with it that could be a genre too in movies, probably.
Heather, I used to do the same exact thing. But I would pretend that I had the Force. So can we categorize Star Wars as witch movies? Because
no.
I but no, like, I get that. Like that, I had a trouble with this too. Like watching this movie, I could not understand how this was witch or witch adjacent. It was interesting, but then I got it when the mother witch, and I was like, oh, okay, like. Yeah, right. and then it made sense as to, all of these things. It made sense to me in the way of like the Salem witch trials, where like they were doing all of these things that people didn't agree with or didn't understand and were labeled as witches. So like that's how I, in my brain, got there.
Right. And the first, at the beginning of the century, at the beginning of Hollywood, the center of Hollywood's, at the beginning of Hollywood's history, in the first 2 decades, most witchcraft films, there's no actual witchcraft. It's herbalism. It's an old woman who lives alone. It's a young girl who's not behaving and won't marry the rich guy. So most witchcraft films in the first couple decades are very much this. Or they have, or like Spitfire in the 30s, Katharine Hepburn, she has a power from God. She can cure babies, and she's called a witch. So most of these films are more like that Salem story until you get later, when you start to get the fantasy and you start to get the ceremonial stuff in the 60s and 70s. So this fits in for me. But there's always that question. It's marginal. It's not as clear as some other ones.
It is worth mentioning, if you go back and you read the first witch books by people who identified as witches in the 50s and 60s, a lot of the books are really focused on developing psychic powers. And it was a big deal for people like Gerald Gardner and those sort of individuals who wrote those first books. So in a way, I think maybe this sort of plays into that, which I find fascinating if we're trying to find reasons why this might be a witch movie. I think by the 70s, witchcraft had sort of moved away from that in the book world, where it was more about, oh, this is a religion. But it's really fascinating to read those early things and see this sort of other look at what witchcraft could be.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a great point.
I do get what you said, Jason, when you said you want somebody to call themselves a witch, because that's all of our choices, not just used as a derogatory, you're a witch, but I am a witch. I get that purity there. Yeah. And then I'm just sitting here thinking, to completely change the subject, what if the mother won in that? I mean, she ended up Christ on the cross, right? She was the ultimate martyr. Her daughter died. Everything burned in hell fire. Maybe the mother won.
Oh,
yeah, that's why it feels like that ending was not satisfying for me for that movie. Like I wanted to see a lot more. I think it's hard because I know it's based off a Stephen King book, and he gets wordy and he has a lot to say. I feel like I am not a big proponent all the time of like a long movie, but this movie could have been longer and I would have enjoyed it if they had stretched out. There's a lot more things that I would like to see them stretch out, like her exploring her telekinesis power. Like I watched her look at a book in the library, but like it felt like she went from shaking an ashtray on a table to slamming doors shut, and it's like, well, how did we get there? And then the ending to me was too fast. I would have liked to have seen longer. Like the part with her and her mother was great. Like that was satisfying enough, like how it was, but like at the school, I don't think that was long enough. So I feel like it could have been fantastic if it was a little bit more, if a little bit more went into it.
I think the morality. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard-Lael.
I was going to say, I think, Courtney, you should watch the remake, because it does go into a little bit more of she starts studying the telekinesis, and you start seeing it's I'm not a big fan of all of the computer generated, but you start seeing her levitating books and levitating her bed, and she actually, it's in the age of the internet, so she has a little bit more, it's a little bit more accessible now. So I think you would really enjoy the remake. But anyway,
I think that's what we're gonna do when we get off of here.
I think the ending, and I think getting, and this is very much like similar to what we discussed last week, is that this film has an artistry that you can't. It was Brian De Palma's artistry, the way the story was told, and I think the end of the film is similar to the beginning. It's not meant to be buttoned up. It's meant to be disturbing as the beginning. And I think it asks the question we're asking, who won? I think that's what it leaves you with. Who really won? Nobody really won. Carrie didn't win. She got revenge, certainly, but did she win? The mother didn't win. She got to die on the cross, like you said, but did she win? Was she the winner of this? No. And in the end, the girl who survives is shaking. She's got trauma. She's going to have PTSD the rest of her life. Did she win because she survived? I don't know about that. So I think the end it's really disturbing, which is very, very telling for a 1976 film during a period of time where our society was really in flux and changing, and people were really disturbed. They were concerned about where things were going with our country at that point. So it really sits very well with all of that. This movie captures the disturbances and the anxiety possibly of that decade. in an artsy way. So in the retelling, you're not going to get that, of course, because it was made at a different time by a different person. So
and I think I have to agree with that, because I feel like, again, and I say this a lot when we watch these older movies that I haven't seen, if I had watched it when I was younger, or I had watched it when it was a little bit more timely or more relevant, it probably would have affected me differently. But I'm used to seeing today's movies. So to me, when you have this like slow burn in the beginning, I get cinematically why that's fantastic. And I agree that it is cinematically fantastic. It's just not my, like, when it goes from slow burn to I have 2 minutes to like process the end of the movie with all this like fireworks going off in my face. I didn't even have time to be disturbed, because I was like in the flow of the movie, and then it was like over.
There was no processing.
Right. And I love a slow burn if I have time like to process the end. So I think that it's a great movie. And I think last week, even Rosemary's Baby was a great movie. I got that. For me, though, it just is, I would have liked, I guess it's just not my taste. I think I see why it is great, but like, and it's not that I was like expecting a happy ending. That was a funny comment. No, but I also didn't expect it to be like completely resolved. I just didn't have time to process what was happening, because everything that happened so quickly. So it's not, I would like open-ended questions. I'm all there for it. Like, you know, not having a fully resolved anything, great. But it just was like, it was there, and then it wasn't, and then it was over. And I was like spinning my head around.
I think Courtney brings up some real points. When I was watching the movie, I'm not a huge lover of the film. I would say, well, I probably will say Wands Up, but I'm still sort of torn. There's some really weird pacing choices made in this film. Like, you could have gotten more depth and backstory with Carrie and her mother, or how Carrie chose to like develop her powers or whatever else. But instead, we're taken on a shopping trip for tuxedos with the male characters for no reason that I could really comprehend. And then there's a scene in the film where the girls are being punished for taunting Carrie in the opening scene, and they're made to like have a really hard PE class, and it keeps going on and on and on, and it could have all been explained in about 90 seconds. You know, I think that there are little issues with the movie in that sense, and I think Courtney brings up good points.
Well, thank you, Jason. I also have to say, it took me, because again, I think it was just time of processing, and I slept last night, so it's not me, but I did not get that the girl that helped, that like sent her to prom, like I thought she was in on the whole thing, and then they're at prom and suddenly she's horrified that this is happening, and I think I missed stuff because I was too busy trying to figure that out. To me, that wasn't clear. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know.
Watch the remake, and it will fill in those holes that you are looking for. That I won't spoil it. I mean, it's the same film, but it's not. I think because it's a more 2016. I think it's a more modern retelling, and so with a more modern sensibility, you'll understand a little bit more. And because of modern technology, it'll also make more sense to you.
I like it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, the pacing of movies
watch the remake.
The pacing of movies from decade to decade, changes, and the directors change, and the styles change, and the technology changes, and we change in our ways we watch stuff. So it becomes difficult. That's why it's so difficult for people to watch films from the 20s and 30s, because the pacing and the way they did them were different, and we're not used to them, as well as the social and cultural context clues that we just completely miss or are offended by. In some cases, there's movies that you'll watch that were super popular, and then you need to take a shower after because they're extremely offensive, but they weren't then. So, there is a lot of context that's lost, as well as our ability to watch films. They move a lot faster now. We're used to shot by shot by shot going way faster. Now, if you were to take a movie from the 30s and 40s, for example, and actually record the length of a shot, average in a movie, then they're longer than they are now. They're much shorter. We get a lot more shots within a period of time. We're used to having to process faster. So when you get movies that are slow burns, like you're talking about, they can be harder to watch for us because we're not used to that. And so that's another factor that's playing into these older movies when we watch them, that makes them a little more difficult. You kind of have to reset your brain and just go, okay, I'm sitting here for 5 minutes looking at two people talking on a screen in a 2-shot. This is getting really boring, but it's the way it was.
Well, doesn't that reflective of the social media world we live in? We went
Probably.
from, I remember MTV generation when everything was so fast. We're not MTV generation. We're TikTok generation now. My best videos are supposed to be under 15 seconds or 15 to 20 seconds. So the whole world has sped up like that. So I could see that, because for all the years, MTV generation, everything moves so fast. MTV is snail's pace compared to what life is now with Instagram and TikTok and Reels and 30-second shorts. You tell a whole movie in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It just, and you watch some of these things and they just flash by in your eyes and you're like, oh my goodness, what? I know what just happened. How is that possible? Because they just flash. And then, 20 seconds, 15 seconds gone. Our attention spans are getting shorter maybe, and as well. So it's interesting. It's really interesting.
I feel like, though, for me, like, I have raging ADHD, so I doom scroll constantly. Like, I am the biggest proponent of those TikTok videos. Like, if it's when the first 5 seconds doesn't grab me, I'm on to the next one. But that, I feel like, should help me watch the ending of a movie like this, where everything happens, like all the big, all they cram into like 3 minutes. And I still like could not, I think I was in that slow processing. I was in the slow processing, and then it was slow processing, and then boom, there you go, firework finale, and then it's over. And I was just like, wait a minute, let me go back and watch that 4 more times because I missed a lot.
You were actually you were in the slow burn because it was moving slow. You're like, I got this one. And then it sped up on you without warning.
Right.
I love the clothes, though. I must say, I'm really looking at the fashions of the 70s. The tuxedos.
Come on.
Those are terrible. Those are bad.
They were so. I loved them.
Those are bad tuxedos. If you want good 70s clothing, you can just go watch Mrs. Jones or Daisy Jones and the Six. That's the epitome of 70s clothing. This is sort of like, oh, I can't believe somebody put that on 70s clothing.
But that was the 70s clothing. That is what kids wore to prom,
Oh,
it broke my heart. So sorry, go ahead.
No, just mistakes were made. Were made. That's all I'm saying.
There was so much of that. I was so in my feels in that movie too, because like dealing with bullies for me, dealing with bullies for my kid, like I could see all the times where it was like, that went too far. Like when he kissed her. Oh no, it was the part where they were getting out of the car and she went to open the door for herself and then she closed it and waited, and like you could see the look on her face that like, and I looked at Gigi and I was like, my heart is broken. Mm-hmm. Like, this is horrible and I can't stand this. But like, I don't know. I don't remember where I was going with this. Oh, but like watching her like doubt herself and like, but she was so beautiful and like her hair was so beautiful and her dress was so beautiful. Yeah. And I just wanted to reach through the screen and strangle people, which is why I did love the prom scene, because ultimately everyone got what they had coming to them. I don't know.
We got to see her have a moment of happiness, right. And that's what it showed, and that's like what got me. She was genuinely happy for 2-3 minutes or whatever it was up there before the blood got spilled on her. But she was so happy, and I think we've all had that moment where you're just like, this is my 30 seconds and everything is great, and it just got taken away from her. It was so
right. But I think it makes me sound sadistic, but like I wanted to watch them pay for it for longer than 30 seconds.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's really
that's really what it was.
Yeah.
What I wonder, I think that's really. Oh, sorry. I think it was a lag. What I wonder about though with this prom scene was that did they deserve that? I don't know that they did, because part of the thing is, even the teacher that helped her slapped her in the face to get her to calm down because it's so 70s. But even the teacher ends up by being slaughtered. And I wonder was everyone laughing at her at that moment, or did she just snap? Was it so much pressure on her that she thought that everyone was laughing, even though probably a lot of people were horrified?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Well, even her date was like, what the hell, and stuff like I think because then it showed in that spot her vision got all like weird, and it showed it with the different people. They're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you, and I think she just snapped and figured everybody was laughing at her, so everybody's getting it. And
you know what? Whether they were laughing or they weren't, they deserved it. So no,
they did not. They did not all deserve it. They did not all deserve it.
Not all of them, but the
not
majority.
All those,
yeah, but
the people who deserved it ran away in a car and then got what they deserved. But the entire school did not deserve it, especially the teacher. The kids who were trying to help her.
I'm going to
respect. And in the book, she actually ends up by she ends up by destroying the town. In the book,
and if people sit by and don't do anything when they see that happening, that was in front of everybody. Like, people did, not just at the prom scene, but people bullied her in front of people. Like, and if you sit by and you don't do anything, then I'm sorry, but you are part of that.
But not all those kids were there in the shower scene. I mean, that was a full prom. I mean, I don't know. It's murder and death seem like perhaps a bigger punishment than what even some of the really bad kids desered. Certainly, I wanted Nancy Allen and John Travolta to get theirs.
John Travolta was so goofy in this. He was so goofy in this movie. But no, I mean, but if you want me to be in the slow burn, which I was, then I need everybody to go and I need to watch it.
Just in the slow burn the first half, not the end.
And the slow burn is not discerning. If I'm slow burning with Carrie, I am Carrie, and everybody deserves it.
I think
where I get it. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, as I think someone brought up a point that scrolled by already, is that the slow movement of the movie up until that point is just really investigating and kind of keeping up with Carrie and how she is being bullied and how she is feeling, and so building to that point where she snaps. And she's not just bullied in the school, so she snaps because she also has no context for dealing socially, because her mother has done what her mother has done to her. Her mother has kept her in this childlike state where she can't cope with anything at all, and so she winds up snapping, and the snap is fast. And I think that would be the timing for me, because it didn't bother me, but the snap is fast and it's harsh and it's over. And then of course she has to be punished for the extremes of her reaction, because like I said, she doesn't win, the kids don't win, the town doesn't win, the mother doesn't win, and even the people that survive don't win who see it. So in the end, it's just an extremely tragic story. It's more Shakespeare tragedy probably in that way than it is anything else. And I think the most horrifying thing, the thing that truly makes it a horror, and we were talking about this a minute ago, is the tuxedos. So bottom line, that's the most frightening part about the whole movie.
This comment right here, like John Travolta, I saw his name come up in the beginning and I was like, what? I didn't know he was in this movie. And then I think my favorite part of the whole movie was his goofy face showing up for the first time, because he was so ridiculous in this movie, and they were just slapping each other. And I was just like, what are we watching?
Slap kiss. Like, what is happening? What are we watching right now?
Right. Well, I don't think all the kids were laughing at her, because I think Robert had mentioned it and somebody else agreed with it. I think that was her snap, because I think there was one little shot that you saw everybody horrified looking at her with the blood on.
Yeah.
That was just, she lost it. So
I
don't think they all deserved it, but I get you, Courtney. Anyway,
Yeah.
I guess we probably should vote. We're getting close to the end. So we want you guys in our audience to vote too. Wands up or wands down. Carrie, the original film, wands up or wands down.
I'm just worried about ever upsetting Courtney at this point in my life. You know, I mean, oh, you deserve to die, Jason. You have upset me. You know, I'm scared.
There might be a little residual feelings here from our investigation on Monday night, so that could also be playing into this. But can I just clarify? I did not mean when I said that like that. I thought everybody was laughing at prom. I'm talking about like if we're just everything, just this is happening throughout her school, obviously. Like it's not just a one-day event. So I'm talking about everybody seeing this go on at school and not doing anything about it.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Yes.
I think you were clear on that.
Oh,
So
good.
it
Okay.
looks like us, mostly ones up or crooked ones up. See, I was so disturbed by it. I would not say it was one of my favorite. I like Rosemary's Baby better. Not that we compare this week's to last week's, but I think it was a really good movie. So I'm giving it a ones up, even though I'm not going to watch it every day.
Yeah.
And it looks like we've got a lot of
Yeah.
wands up in our audience right there. Wands up, wands up, wands up, up, up and away. So, Carrie, check it out.
I think this one and last week's are the two best witch films of this period of time that we look at during this witch wave. I mean, they're just the two best made. Everything else is B, and it's fun to watch though. I know Courtney's watched a few from the 1970s that were fun to watch. So,
So do we know what we want to
count-
watch next week? Did we have that planned already?
I think we do.
Okay,
The
what are we going to
plan
watch
was-
next week? Heather?
Well, it says
Renfield.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Let's do Renfield.
Yes.
So everybody's got to go watch Renfield.
We have to go to a theater.
I'm so excited. I love the movie theater.
Bring Black Phillip
Yeah.
with you.
Bring Black Phillip.
There'll be
I
no
went to
live
a
tweeting the
screening of
film.
it. I went to a screening at USC and they gave everybody like the world's cheapest fangs, those little like Halloween ones. So I was at USC big fancy theater with everybody with fangs and the director and the music score and all that. So, all right. So let's do real quick. I only have a few minutes left. Everybody check in anything you have going on where people can find you, like you, and follow you. Let's start with, Courtney and Gigi, since you're there together.
All right. So I'm Courtney. I am Ghostbait on Scared and Alone. You can catch up on what we've been doing the last couple of days at scaredandalone.com. I am at the Themes, all my personal things on various social medias. I've been posting pictures and stuff. So we've been on a haunted road trip. We investigated the Boyd House in Minnesota on Sunday. We investigated the Villisca Axe Murder House on Monday in Iowa, and we investigated the Allegan County Jail and Museum last night. So it's been a long time. It's been a long couple of days. We've traveled. I've been in 11 states in the last 3 days, which is more than I've ever been in my entire life. So that's very exciting. And so basically coming up, I have going home. I have a 13-hour drive home. I'm going to drive home in a couple of days and rest forever and ever and then go back to work. That's me.
All right. Thank you. And Gigi, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. I'm Gigi. I am host of Paranormal XL podcast and owner of Ascended from Magic Boutique. And like Courtney said, after our long road trip, we are going to rest forever and ever and ever.
And watch the new camera.
Oh yeah, it'll be fun.
All right. Richard-Lael.
I am Richard-Lael. That's one name, not two. I'm easy to be found. And you can find me anywhere the Gentleman Psychics are sold. And Instagram, Twitter, not there anymore. Instagram, anyway, social medias of social. I'm all over that. I'll also be in Boston for SatanCon, and that will be fun. Also, you can find me at universitymagicus.com and Scared Alone.
Yes.
All kinds of things. I'm everywhere.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere. Maybe there's 2 or 3 of him. All right. Jason.
I'm Jason. I'm going to be at the Florida Pagan Gathering in the state of Florida next weekend, and then staying home for 2 months. And I'm very excited about that.
Thank you very much. And Pan Monkey on your social medias, most of your social media, right?
Not Monkey though. That would get me into trouble. It's usually
Oh.
Pan Mankey. See, now I'm gonna have to all like be Carrie, and I've been bullied now on the show.
Mason, I support you. I support you, and your feelings are valid.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's been a
all
long few days for all
You're
of us.
not the
All
first,
right.
and you won't be the last.
We will move on. Okay, Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather, and you can find me on my website, and all my socials are linked there. They're slightly different, but I have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, heathergreene.net. And I am going to be live and in person at Mystic South Conference. It's a mystical and pagan conference in Atlanta in July. And I am on the board. So we are busy planning really great stuff, full 3 days of conference goodness, magical stuff and witchy stuff. Other than that, I am, as usual, working with my great witchy authors every day. And I have a couple new articles up on Religion News Service. So please go over there and you can see some on pagans and witches. I cover occult, paganism, witchcraft, and all the things related for in Religion News. So please, I have a couple of new articles up this week and a few more coming, really good ones. So check that out. And I think that is it for now. And if you really love watching movies, I'll just throw my book up. And then you can follow us and read. And then you'll know what I'm going to say too. So maybe you shouldn't read it first.
It's a big, beautiful book. Everybody should have
Thank
one.
you.
It's a big, beautiful book with lots of information. Thank you. I am Patti Negri, and I do have another show called The Witching Hour. I'm the author. My book is called Old World Magic for the Modern World. PattiNegri.com, where you can get to all my correct social medias. So check out the Witching Hour drops every Monday. Always join us here and tell your friends about us here. And then you also want a little bit of merch, because we don't have our blankies on today, but you can get this movie.
There's the blankie.
She brought it on her road trip.
I traveled with it.
Witches Movie Coven merch. That is a big wrappy blankie, and
Has a
you can
hood.
get t-shirts and hats and caps and mugs. And from there, you could also get to Scared and Alone. If you just go to Mystery Control, you could get to Scared and Alone merch and you could also get to Patti's spellcasting and my new phenomenon, just launching Patti's Power Panties, because everybody needs a little magic in their pants. And you can have it now. Patti's Power Panties. So go to Mystery Control and you can have a whole new wardrobe from the skivvies up. So
I have our beautiful Black Phillip t-shirt on tonight. Under my hoodie.
That's
Yeah.
That's
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Would you like to watch movies deliciously? You can with this t-shirt.
And I have to spread more out. I have like 1,000 Black Phillip postcards. I have 1,000 Witches Movie Coven postcards. I need to spread them out, to spread the love, because my whole office is stacked up with this stuff. But we want to thank everybody for watching, listening, tell your friends, post and repost. And we have one more thing to do in our remaining 2 minutes. Oh, and Black Phillip. Somebody keeps missing Black Phillip. Everybody needs a Black Phillip. Yes, indeed. We do not sell these yet on Mystery Control, our websites. I don't know. We should probably figure out how to get a Black Phillip, because, but yes, get a shirt, get a mug, get a Black Phillip. And now we're going to go back to our last moment readings. We have one more thing. Join us in everywhere, because what do witches do? We cackle. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we started early. We have to keep cackling. Oh no.